We are not going to allow this symbol to divide us any longer. The fact that people are choosing to use it as a sign of hate is something that we cannot stand. The fact that it causes pain to so many is enough to move it from the Capitol grounds. My hope is that by removing a symbol that divides us, we can move forward as a state in harmony, and we can honor the 9 blessed souls who are now in heaven.
All right, folks, welcome aboard the Tuesday edition of the Steve Malzberg Show. And of course, this continues to dominate the news, the Confederate flag, and more and more people coming out against it and in favor of removing it, whether it be in South Carolina or elsewhere. Joining us right now to weigh in on this and a whole bunch of other issues is former 3-time governor of the state of New York, current presidential candidate for the Republican presidential nomination, excuse me, Governor George Pataki. Good to see you, sir.
Steve, good being with you again.
Thank you very much. All right. Your take on this whole Confederate flag issue?
I called for it to be taken down early yesterday because I do think that on a government at the Capitol, it's inappropriate to have this historic symbol, which is a divisive symbol, on display. A museum, fine. And in fact, I thought this issue had been resolved because a good friend of mine, Governor David Beasley, former governor of South Carolina, when he got elected as a Republican governor, he took it down.
Yeah.
And then he lost for re-election. The Democrats ran on, we're going to put the Confederate flag back up. So I don't see this as a partisan issue. Beasley took it down. He did the right thing then, and I hope South Carolina does the right thing now, which is remove it and put it in a museum.
Do you think if the people of South Carolina, though, had a vote right now, they would vote to remove it? I mean, what if the people of South Carolina wanted to keep it up?
I would hope that they would agree to take it down. South Carolinians, I think, understand that we have to come together as Americans. They're one of only 2 states who have elected an African-American senator who's serving, Tim Scott, serving in the Senate today.
And the governor is a minority.
And the governor is a minority. So I think South Carolina understands that we're all one people. And I think, Steve, that's bigger than the flag. What is bigger than the flag is for us to put aside these differences. We're all Americans. We have a common destiny and a common future. And it's been in the political interest, the political class's interest, to pit this group against that group, to pit the middle class against the 1%. Ultimately, it's destructive of us. We're Americans. Let's work together.
Well, you know, the Times Union of Albany gave you a great endorsement today along those lines of working together and bringing people together, which I want to get to in a second. But yesterday, the President of the United States did something which some people consider quite extraordinary. He went on his podcast called WTF, and you know what that stands for,
yeah,
and used the N-word. Didn't use it in derogatory, didn't call anybody the N-word, but he used it out loud. And some people are saying that was great, and some people are saying, well, let's see. We just had this horrific incident, racial incident at a black church. It's the first day of summer. There's been unrest. People are on edge. There's predictions that there could be trouble in major cities. And now he's throwing the N-word out there. Was that smart?
You know, it's troubling to me that anyone would use it, and certainly I don't think the president should either. On the other hand, I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of an African American using it in a way that perhaps they think is appropriate. My personal view, it should never be used. It's a hateful word, and whether it's the president or a rapper, I don't think it should be a part of a 21st century dialogue.
And one more on this shooting. Do you think that, I mean, from the news coverage, I don't know how much news coverage you've gotten to watch because you're traveling all around the country, but from the news coverage, you would think that, and from what Hillary has said, if you've listened to her, and what the president said in that interview, all white people now have to look deep within themselves because we're flawed, because there's a racial problem, and it's all as a result of this shooting.
You know, I think we have seen the country take a step backward in race relations over the course of the past 7 years. And I think it started when you have people like Eric Holder embracing Al Sharpton, who has been a divisive force forever, going out to Ferguson, Missouri, and the Attorney General condemning a police officer and then finding out a year later and issuing a report saying that police officer did nothing wrong. I think it's certainly, in this case, it was a white racist who committed this horrible, horrible act of criminal terrorism. He should face the consequences. But we all have to look at ourselves and say, what are we doing to unite people instead of divide us? I'm fortunate. I grew up in a very ethnically, racially, very diverse community. And we all looked at each other as part of that town. Neighbors, friends, teammates on the basketball team or the track team. And that's what we have to get back to. We're all Americans, and let's stop dividing so that we can gain some advantage.
And one more, because I lied, but although this isn't about the shooting, this is about guns and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Hillary alluded to the fact that she was a senator from New York, and she understands upstate New York that guns are part of the culture and elsewhere around the country. Do you feel this is being exploited as a gun issue as well?
It's not part of the culture. It's the Second Amendment. It's
yes,
part of
I'm
our
telling you what she said,
Constitution
yes.
and our constitutional rights to have the right to bear arms. And I do think whenever there's an incident like this, too many try to use it to gain a political advantage and advance an ideological agenda. But if you want to look at the real cause here, it's not the gun. If you look at Virginia Tech, you look at Columbine, you look at Tucson, you look at Newtown, someone obviously mentally ill, obviously a clear danger to others, never got the mental health treatment, never was removed so that they could be forced to protect themselves from violence. That's where the problem lies here. It's with mentally ill individuals. And when I was governor, I was proud to sign a law that said that we could confine in a mental health institution people against their will when it was clear that they posed a threat to themselves or others.
All right, let me ask you about fast track. The Senate had cleared a preliminary hurdle in giving the authority to the president. The House had already done that. My problem is, in my view, whether you favor it or not as a Republican, to see John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership, the same guys who say this president's dishonest, this president can't be trusted, he's violated the Constitution, he's broken the law, say, hey, buddy, we're going to give you fast track. It just sends a bad message, in my view, to the voting public.
You know, I understand that, and I trust this president about as much as I trust Hillary Clinton with the State Department's emails. But I do think fast-track authority matters, and it's not just for trade and economics. We see China becoming far more aggressive, particularly in the South Pacific. And this will link not just our traditional allies like South Korea and Japan and the Philippines, but new potential strategic players like Vietnam, like Singapore. So I think sending them the message that we want them to embrace us as opposed to China is critically. And with respect to the rule of law, it doesn't become law. It gives him the authority. He negotiates an agreement. It has to go back to Congress. And Congress, if there are things in there that we don't like, can vote it down.
All right. As I mentioned, the Times-Union endorsement of sorts that your call for bipartisan approach, it says here it shows a true leader, and they're praising you in this piece today. And you have, I mean, that's how you governed in New York State.
Well, I'm a conservative Republican, and I ran as one and I governed as one. But once the elections are over, it gets back to what we were talking about with the Confederate flag. Do you not talk to Democrats because they're of a different party? Do you only embrace Republicans because it's your party? You want to govern not on behalf of your party, but on behalf of the people. And I was able to do that in New York. And I think we just see too much partisan divide, too much effort at advantaging your political career or your party's interest as opposed to the public interest. And we have to put that aside. Yes, we campaign as Republicans or Democrats, but we have to govern as Americans.
And how are you doing? I know you're going to New Hampshire today, then you got another stop, and you told me before you made the initial decision that people don't remember you necessarily, and that might be a good thing. So how are you, how's the reintroduction going?
We had a tremendous launch. We launched in New Hampshire, and the enthusiasm and excitement
live on
was
CNN.
tremendous.
Yeah,
it was just a terrific reaction. And it so much reminds me when I ran against Mario Cuomo, Republican in New York, that it's an uphill fight. But that stimulates you as opposed to disappointing you. So I know that I have a long road to go, and I'm perfectly happy climbing that road and that hill because it's about the future of the country, it's about the future of the world, and if you can't get excited about the possibility to lead this great country, you're not going to get excited about anything.
Great to see you, Governor. Thank you very much. Steve. Governor George Pataki. Website?
Twitter, tweet is George Pataki. Website, Facebook, at George Pataki.
At George Pataki. All right. Good luck, sir. We'll speak to you again. We're coming back, folks. Lots more ahead. Lots to talk about on the Steve Malzberg Show, Tuesday edition. Don't go away. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. We're good.